It is so cold outside that I had to do something to cheer me up. So I made chicken and dumplings, and this is how I did it. First of all, I bought 2 chicken thighs, $1, and I decided that I wanted to cook this just a wee bit different. This is how I did it. Now, because it's chicken, I put the chicken in a plastic bag. I wanted to do everything in that bag and then simply discard the bag. Vinegar, of course. I use some Accent, which is monosodium glutamate. MSG. I love the taste of MSG. And, of course, I added some salt. Now, if you're going to make this dish, I would strongly suggest that you use real ingredients. Here I'm showing you the artificial stuff. Just in case you don't have the real stuff, then you can use the artificial. Well, okay, so they're not artificial, but they're not really like the real stuff, right? So if you can, you should use real Scotch bonnet pepper, real onions, and real garlic, and curry. I like curry. I think curry adds a lot to food, don't you? Okay, so for this session, after washing the chicken, we added the different flavors to the chicken. Here's a good time, by the way, for you to add your own personal touch. I know that you have your own personal way of doing things, and you have your own personal flavors that you like. Curry, of course, a liberal amount of curry because I like curry. And while that was happening, I got my oil very hot. If you're using coconut oil, of course, you don't have to discard the oil later. But if you're not, you're going to have to discard the oil later, and we'll talk about that. So the oil is hot, and in goes the chicken. Not to cook, mind you, but simply to brown the chicken. For any curry dish, really, the best way to do it is to add the curry to the oil. Like I said, if I'd added the curry to the coconut oil, that's really the best way to do it. But on we go. If you did not use coconut oil, of course, after browning the chicken, what you want to do is to discard the oil. You don't need it anymore, really. So, now that your chicken is nice and brown, all you need to do is get it out of that oil and put it away somewhere. I'm kidding you. Just put it on some paper towel and just get ready for the second operation, the second phase of the Microdac style curry chicken and dumpling. In my case, I took a rest, I took a break to reminisce about summer. Summer is my favorite time of the year. Did I mention how cold it is outside? Okay, so let's get back to cooking. Fresh coconut oil. In the coconut oil, I added some onions. This is a wonderful time to add all your goodies. Onion, thyme, garlic, everything that you like. This is when you want to add it to your cooking, okay? This is the perfect time. Now we're going to put the chicken back into it. Fresh, nice, and not as much oil as before. But add your chicken and all your spices. So, because you don't have as much oil as you did before, you just have a very little oil, really. Here's when you want to add some liquid. You may want to add either just plain water, boiling water, of course, or perhaps you may want to add some chicken broth, because the chicken now will be simmering in the onions and thyme and all your spices, and it'll be simmering there for a little while anyway. So once that's done, put your lid on and let's go on to phase 3, okay? If only you could smell the kitchen with the onions and all that. It smelled so good. I'm going to be having this curried chicken and dumpling along with some rice. Now, to make rice, get 2 cups of boiling water. To the boiling water, you want to add 1 cup of rice. And once you've done that, stir it to make sure that all the little grains are separated. You want to place your stove on simmer and put the lid on your rice pot. In about 30-40 minutes or so, your rice will be done and you can put that away and wait for dinner. Now let's talk about making the dumplings. One of my ways of making the dumplings. About a cup of flour. To that I add about a teaspoon of baking powder and about a half a teaspoon of accent, MSG. And then I will add either coconut oil, or I may add something else such as real butter. Okay, today I'm going to add real butter. Prior to adding the butter, of course, I want to make sure that the dry ingredients are mixed together well. If you added salt, baking powder, MSG, and then I add the butter, and I really crumple the butter into the flour, like really make sure the butter is all over the flour. Then I add a very little water, and once I just enough water to make a dough, and then I shape my dumplings into little spinners. About a quarter cup of water. I say about because you keep adding water until the dough it reaches a point where you can play with it. Should consistency of Play-Doh really. As for these little spinners, I put a lump in the middle of my left hand. I form a ball in it, and then I rub them together until both ends are tapered like that. I call them spinners, and I like them. And the flavor is outstanding, really outstanding. Why? Because of the butter, MSG, a little bit of salt, and the baking powder. To what's left in the bowl after I make my dumplings, I will add enough water to make sort of like a gravy, because I'm going to add that to my dumplings. That'll thicken up my chicken and dumplings. You see what I mean? And give it that gravy texture. The flowers doesn't have anything to do with it. I just keep thinking about summer. I do miss summer. After about 40 minutes of simmering, of course, I had the most delicious chicken and dumplings. It was really good. Okay, so keep your comments and your suggestions coming. I like to hear from you. Bon appetit.